With Katalin Cseh, we look at equality and rights. We're here at the European University Institute State of the Union Conference, where, Katalin, you've just discussed these matters in a panel. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What is actually, in your view, the greatest challenge in terms of equality and rights?
Well, I would have to say that the democratic backsliding that we are witnessing all across Europe and elsewhere in the world, we see a systemic attack on the judiciary, rolling back checks and balances, attacks on the media, attacks on individual freedoms. These are processes that undermine the underpinnings of a fair and just society, and also those institutions that can protect the values of people. It is very dangerous to see that there are member states of the European Union who would not get accepted as members if they would be applying now, because this community just allowed for this backsliding to happen, and this is our moral obligation to stand up and stop this.
Yeah. In that sense, of course, the European Union is not a homogeneous set of countries. What can, for example, elected representatives in the European Parliament and other bodies do to exert pressure and to do something about that?
Well, we have to legislate in order to achieve better instruments that can act as a real deterrent from governments who would try to go against the rights and freedoms of their own citizens. And for this, the rule of law conditionality mechanism is a very powerful tool that I was privileged enough to work in setting it up. This is an instrument that ties European money to European values. And we hope that it will be implemented effectively so that no government could use the European Union as an ATM anymore while trampling on the rights and values of European citizens.
It's of course difficult to single out specific countries, but could you give an example of in what kind of situation that could be used?
Well, the conditionality mechanism is being applied for the first time against the Hungarian government, against the country where I'm from, and where I've seen in the past 13 years a very deep erosion of democracy. We saw marginalized groups being scapegoated. We saw the independence of the judiciary rolled back, the government eating up almost 80% of the free media. And just yesterday, the police were tear gassing minors in Hungary, in Budapest, because they were protecting for a better education. This is happening inside the European Union. So it's very necessary for Europe to have a real instrument where European money can be tied to European values. And in case a government does not fulfill these conditions, then this money should be directed to the NGOs and to the individuals who are really trying to work on European causes.
Yeah, and talking about the role of those organizations that actually address the thematics of equality, people's rights in a country like Hungary, for example, how difficult is it at the moment for them to operate and to do their work?
Well, I'm proud to say that the Hungarian civil society is very resilient, but it is a very difficult terrain to work at. Just a couple of years ago, the Hungarian government adopted legislation straight out of Vladimir Putin's playbook, the anti-NGO law that was copy-pasted from Russia. Everybody who speaks up for freedoms, for more rights, for justice is being scapegoated. I'm very proud to be able to work on programs in the European Parliament which would provide more help and funding and support for those who are advocating for the rights of the vulnerable in very difficult settings.
Yeah. There's, of course, then we hope that other countries can actually help, in a united front, help improve the situation also in those countries in the EU where the situation is more difficult. If we talk about rights, this is such a sensitive topic, right? And it is a broad spectrum of issues that are involved. As you're working on this each and every day, what are the kind of misconceptions about this topic that you come across?
I think the most common misconception is that the erosion of rights is a thing that can only happen elsewhere. So many European citizens take their rights for granted. They isolate it as a Hungary problem or a Poland problem, and they do not realize that democratic backsliding is more prevalent than we could ever imagine. This is a common and a dangerous misconception. So I would like to urge everybody not to take their rights and values for granted. Fight for democracy, even though if you live in a country where you perceive yourself to be comfortable right at, because the slope is more slippery than you can ever imagine. So you have to be advocates for your own democracies every single day.
I think that's a beautiful message to conclude with. Katalin Cseh, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.